Hello, welcome to the Kansas City Business Cast. This is Michael Reisinger. Very excited about today's guest. Her name is Taylor Nosakhere. She is a mom, a doula, a coach, a group coach, and a podcaster, and so many more things that she'll tell you all about today. Without further ado, Taylor, welcome to the show.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, all the things. Fun fact, I'm also a catering chef on the side.
Are you serious?
And I've taught yoga.
Whoa.
So I've dabbled in all the things, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, my story is kind of interesting. I went to college to be a chef. I knew in high school, I was like, I'm either going to be an actress or chef. I can't have a 9-to-5. Like, that's just not for me. I don't know. I don't feel smart enough to be like a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. So I was like, I'm going to go to one of these two like artsy type of trades. And then I chose culinary because it felt more stable. Went through school, started working for this catering company. And ultimately, as I was kind of working my way up, realized that the only way for me to like make more money and see more success was for me to actually just like work more hours and be more stressed in that particular industry. And all the while I was getting into wellness and going to yoga classes and was like, why don't I just learn to teach this? And then it kind of morphed over into that direction and turned into this wellness journey that then turned into this. I had always kind of had the desire to have my own business. I always thought it would be culinary related. And then once I started teaching yoga, I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to make a yoga business. And then as I had my first son, and there's a little bit more backstory to the doula part, but then I migrated over into just like, I need to serve moms. I need to be in the pregnancy space, there's such a gap in education where women are not being given the information that they need to really leave their experience feeling like they were in charge of their story,
right.
Like they were in the driver's seat. That's the analogy that I use. So yeah, now I'm a birth doula and a prenatal coach and like a mom coach, and it's what I'm meant to be doing in the world.
Well, I really appreciate you kind of telling a little bit about your beginnings. My observations so far, and I usually tell people on the podcast, if I've worked with the person before or if I know them from a past life, I literally just met you. So, you were one of the first people who was like, when I launched KCBC, you were like, oh, I'd love to be on that. And you knew Stephanie because, you interviewed Stephanie, and your podcast is called Driver's Seat Moms, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So of course, I'm going to drop all the links in the show notes so everybody can get into it. And then when we launch this thing, you and I are going to have a sharing war of the episode, and we're going to get everybody to come in. But what I've just to validate what you're saying, you said, I feel like this is what I should be doing. When I see your content on Instagram and see what you're doing on podcasting and the stories you share and how, you literally, there's points I can tell you get inspired. Tell me if I'm wrong, but you get inspired and you're like, I'm going to make a story right now, and I'm going to tell my people about this. And 100%. You just flow. Yeah. And that's the thing that I get about you is you don't have to convince me that you're authentic, And so where does that come from? Have you always just been like real about stuff in life, or like, how did you decide like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to help moms?
Wow. I don't know if I've ever really thought about like why. I think there was a lot of trial and error along the way. When I got into the online space, it was, I started my business in like late 2017. I was currently pregnant. And at the time, like I said, it was more like yoga, and I was helping couples because I knew the wedding industry from the chef world. And it was still the era of like very curated feeds, curated content. Everything was aesthetically pleasing. That's kind of the world I jumped into. So that's what I was learning. And I was showing up that way. I don't even think stories were a thing yet. Like it was just posts on Instagram, and I started into Instagram first.
You got me going back too. I don't think it was either.
I don't think it was. And when stories first came out, I was like, nope, not doing that. I did not want anything to do with it. I was late to the Reels train as well. Like I don't want to do the trendy things. I'm always like, no, but what's wrong with what I'm doing? And when I started showing up on stories, I happened to also be like a new mom in the thick of like postpartum and at home with my son while trying to build a business. So it was kind of one of those things where it was like, if I'm going to show up at all, which I had the resistance around, I was like, I am kind of just going to have to show up as is, because if I wait to put on a face and do my hair to show up, I literally wouldn't show up. So I was like, I'm just going to lean into this real, this is what you get. Like my company's name, my business name is With You Wellness. And the reason that's the name is because it was this I'm coming along with you. I'm in this with you. Like,
I love that.
I'm not 100 steps ahead of you. I'm just maybe 2 or 3. And we're in the thick of it together. Like, I'm a new mom too. I'm figuring it out too. And so it was kind of one of those things where I was like, if I don't show up with no makeup and messy hair, like I'm literally not going to show up at all. And that I think just kind of spiraled into me being able to show up more and more authentically. But there have been many, many moments where I'm like, ooh, I don't think I can say that. I don't know if I should say that. Or I do say something because I'm just like, whatever, screw it. And I do get comments or I do get judged. And sometimes it's by my family members, you know, it's like, it's the strangers on the internet I could care less about.
Right.
But it's when the people close to you that you know are watching your stuff because they're supporting you, and your stuff like automatically goes to Facebook, and they're on Facebook and you totally forgot it was going to Facebook, and you're like, oh crap. Like, they have opinions about it. And I've just, it's a muscle that you have to flex. It's a muscle that you have to put the work in. And the only way I think to get kind of quote unquote good at it, or just giving less F's kind of, is like just to keep doing it. Like, you just have to keep doing it. Because I talk to a lot of people that are like, oh, I can't show up like that. And I'm like, you just got to do it once and then twice and then 3 times. Like, you just have to start, because it's that oomph, like that start, that's the hardest. Really, really.
You know, I went through that type of period before I launched this podcast. And, you know, I was like, you know, everything you said about being resistant to stories, reels, I recoiled to social media. Like, it was a throw up in my mouth a little bit when I thought about putting my face on there and talking and all that. And I came to the same sort of realization of like, you know, progress over perfection. It's never going to be the best or good enough in the eyes of some folks. Right. And so, I just appreciate you sharing that. Like, I'm just going to go into this. When you talk about the comments that you've received, my observation is you're getting way more praise than you are criticism. But what do you think the reward has been for you in your community of moms that need your help by being authentic?
It's the messages that are the opposite. It's the, oh my God, I needed to hear that today. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that my kids aren't the only ones that are being little shits today. Like, I'm so, you know, like, I literally, it's funny you ask this now, because literally last night, my grandma texts me. So I get on there, I'm sharing just some current state of my own personal pregnancy, and I say something
which we didn't
like,
tell people. You're pregnant right now, right? I am pregnant
with my second set of twins, which is really wild.
Set of twins.
Yeah. And
so you were
I'm
sharing,
still in denial a little bit about it, but I was sharing something, and I said, you're not alone. And I get a text from my grandma who watches my stories, and she's like, I wish that I would have had someone like you when I was having babies telling me I wasn't alone, and it's like social media can have so many negative things, but then there is that just like you can see other people going through what you're going through. And if we only show up when we're perfect and polished and things are good, then nobody gets to feel like they're not in it alone. Like, and I'm not saying come on and be a negative Nancy either. Like, don't just come on and like share negative things all the time. And we do want to bring that positive light to social media, but I feel like there's a way to do both. And I feel like you can show the realness, because I mean, even what I did in my story yesterday, I was like, here's the real, this is the crappy part, and here's what I'm doing to not focus on the crappy part. Like, here's also the tip. Here's also the suggestion. Here's how I'm not allowing myself to sit in it. But I am going to probably like go cry in my shower later and just like feel it. Like, let yourself feel it so that you can get out of it. Because we don't want to sit in those negative feelings, but we do need to feel them. And so, yeah, it's those messages. The moms that, have had past birth experiences. I talk a lot to second-time moms. And I'm actually narrowing in my niche of my program to be specifically for second-time moms who have had a very difficult first experience. And I get so many messages that are just like their stories. And sometimes I'm probably the only person that's actually listened to them and validated them. Like the first time that they've ever got to tell their story to somebody who didn't dismiss it and say, oh, well, your baby's healthy.
This is just part of it.
This is just, yeah.
I know that's something my wife's heard before.
Oh, yeah. I mean, talking to Stephanie, it's like, I know she's heard all of that kind of stuff. And that's what perpetuates a lot of the mental health struggles that moms face, and that's one of the things we talked about on the podcast. It's just, but hearing those stories and hearing I just really need to hear that today. I mean, that's what keeps me showing up. And sometimes I don't hear those messages for weeks and weeks, and then I'll get one and it lasts,
right.
It's like it fills you up and it just like carries you through.
Right. Yeah. So the focus here, you said you're thinking about that, you're noodling on, second time moms. Do you think it takes going through an experience to understand the value of having a coach or a doula? Is it harder to convince maybe first time moms like, hey, here's what you're walking into, here's what you might hear, here's what you need to ask, the questions you need to ask? I know, because you're all about coaching people through it, right? Like you're there with them. But just curious about the second time moms piece there.
Yes, I would say the focus is different for first time moms. And the desire to prioritize the emotional support, the desire to prioritize understanding certain information. Sometimes first-time moms just don't realize they need it. And I hate that. Like I've even made posts about it. I hate that women are forced to go through this traumatic experience in order to know that the next time they want it to be different. It pisses me off. I want to get in front of it. I want to speak in a way in my content that I'm speaking to the second time mom, but in a way that the first time mom is like, well, I don't want to go through that first. Right. Because I would say my clientele is actually 50-50, like first time moms versus second time moms, but it's the second time moms that just have this like, this has to be different mentality.
Right.
And I do get a few first time moms that are just like very open to the unfortunate truths that are our maternal health care system. And so they already know going in, like, I can't do things just by the book, or I can't just blindly trust my provider. Like I actually really do need to know things. And those are the first time moms that I want to work with. So yes, I think it's definitely, there's far less quote unquote convincing a second time mom valuable. And I wish that wasn't the case. It's, you know, it sucks because I don't want women to ever have to go through something horrible or even just slightly unpleasant, slightly unfortunate. Like, your birth should be amazing. Like, it shouldn't even be like, well, you know, I got through it. Like, even if you're not using the word trauma to describe your experience, like, just saying, well, I kind of wish things were a little different. I hear a lot, I wish I would have known. I wish someone would have told me.
Right.
I wish I would have known that was even an option. I didn't even know to ask. I didn't even know that was something I could ask for. Wait, you can ask for a new nurse? Wait, you can switch provider? Like, what? Like, people don't know this stuff. And I want to be able to convey that information to the brand new, you know, not even thinking about becoming pregnant woman, but like, her mind's not even there yet.
Right.
So we have to meet people where they are too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, you decided at one point, I want to do this. I want to be a professional doula, a coach. And then, you know, these other things have kind of spawned out too, from like your desire to be authentic, for people to know you so that they can get in touch with you. For anybody out there listening who might be feeling like they're on this track, it's funny. I have a friend whose daughter has been considering this type of path, and obviously it's not the traditional path, right? And maybe you could say, you know, you could explain like briefly what a doula is for those who don't know and the value in it. But, you know, how was your journey to making this your business? You know, and we'll get into the operational stuff that you got to deal with and how you manage that. But, you know, to make it like, this is going to be my career now. This is my path.
Yeah, I actually pushed it away for a long time. So my mom was a doula for a little while when I was growing up, but my sisters are quite a bit younger than me. So she had young kids and it was hard for her to be on call. She ended up becoming a nurse and now she's a lactation consultant. So I utilize her a lot for my clients, and she also taught childbirth education. So I had this like little bit of knowledge just as a kid, teenager, young adult before I got pregnant. So when I got pregnant, I already kind of knew like there's a lot of information that I need to learn. I wasn't one of those people that was like, I don't know what I don't know, but I kind of knew what I didn't know. So I started learning what I didn't know. It was like one step ahead. I still didn't know anything, but I started learning what I didn't know. And, but even in that moment when I was like, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to step into this world, I'm going to teach yoga, like the birth work side never felt like the thing I was supposed to do because I was going to have to be on call. I was going to have a young family. Like, who am I? I don't know anything. I haven't had a baby yet. That means more school. I just finished school. I just took yoga training. I can't invest more money in another training. I can't spend more time educating myself. Like, I just need to use what I've got. And also this idea of like the only way to make money in this world is to be on call all the time. I just couldn't get that out of my head. Like
the exchange of time for money. Hours worked
and birth is
equals
unpredictable money. And you just have to be on call and be at everybody's beck and call. And so even after I had my son, I had this like desire to share content around birth. So I started sharing content on my platform. I started sharing education on my platform.
Which at the time, was it the yoga platform? Or
yeah, and I was just kind of like, here's some mom stuff too.
You're
like
kind of introducing it into the mix.
Yeah, like, okay, it's this wellness brand. There's yoga, there's mom, there's some birth stuff. And I really like, again, I was like, but this isn't something I can do as a career. Like I have a young family. I can't be on call. And so I actually put an offering on my website at the time that was prenatal coaching, which is so ironic. That's like what I do now. But I put it up there. I don't even know what I charged for it. Probably like nothing. And of course nobody bought it because it was just sitting on my website on a web page that like nobody knew about. And I like talked about it to my 5 followers or whatever. And so it never went anywhere. And then in the summer of 2019, I just like, it was building. I was a new mom. I was feeling all these things I was wanting to share. And so my mom and I decided we were going to put on this like workshop for moms to feel confident in their birth or something like that. And we had pulled in some other experts in the area and we were going to have them as speakers, and we made a couple flyers and talked about it on our socials, and it was going to be amazing. We had the facility and everything. And again, no one signed up. And it was like, dang, okay. So again, we're good at our trade. We love what we're talking about, but like, we don't know anything about business. We don't know how to market. Like, we don't know, like, okay, we can't just put a couple of flyers up in coffee shops and expect like 20 people to sign up or even 5. It just didn't work out. And in that moment, I was like, you know what? I think part of the problem is I'm not coming at this from the full confidence because I haven't gone through doula training. Like, all I have under my belt is the fact that I'm a mom. I did a lot of research myself. I advocated like hell for my own birth. And I have a lot of knowledge that other people don't have, but like, I've never been in anybody else's birth. I don't know enough is kind of what I felt. And it was affecting, I think, how I was showing up and maybe who I was networked with, who knew my name, who knew me as an expert in that area. And then in the October of 2019, a workshop came to Kansas City that circles around the country. It's called Spinning Babies. And at the time, it wasn't very common and the trainings were kind of expensive. I don't know what they are now, but it was an in-person training and I was able to get a free ticket because of the work that my mom did through lactation, and she had access to this thing. And she was like, you should go. And it was October of 2019 and I was like, okay, I'll go. I was the only non-birth worker in the room. Like, everyone else was either a doctor, a midwife, a chiropractor, a doula. I was the only one there. And I was just like, holy crap, this is where I'm meant to be. Like, these are the women I'm meant to serve. This is exactly what I'm supposed to be talking about every day. And I signed up for a doula training the very next February because that was the next one that was available.
February of 2020.
2020. And so I,
every guest so far has had a 2020 story, by the way. So
started an in-person business at the beginning of a pandemic when literally they shut doulas out. Like, we were not allowed in, and I was starting an in-person business. And more experienced doulas at the time were able to pivot online or virtual or FaceTime. And I was like, I don't even think I can do that because I've never even been in a live birth outside my own. Like, how can I offer virtual service? And so at the time I had like a beta client who I didn't get to go to her birth and she didn't want to do virtual, and I totally respected that. And that was a bummer because we had done prenatals and we had worked together. And I just felt bad for her. I was like, she's going into this like world of having a baby during COVID and nobody knew anything. Her baby was due in May that year. And I was just like, ugh.
That sounds gut wrenching.
Yeah, I just felt so bad leaving her like just by herself. And then I ended up getting 3 clients at the end of that year. So I had a November mom, or an October, a November, and a December. 2 were in hospitals and 1 was in a birth center. And I was allowed into all 3. So by winter of 2020, I was allowed in Kansas City. I know some other states and cities, like, they still weren't allowing doulas. And even one of the births, I wasn't allowed. It was an induction, and I wasn't allowed in until she was like in active labor. So there was still some weird rules going on. But even in that moment, so backtrack. At that time, I was pregnant with my first set of twins. So I found out I was pregnant in the summer of 2020. Okay. And I was pregnant for those 3 births. So then I started my business, COVID, had 3 clients, and then in February had twins. And so I immediately was like pulled back again. I was like, I can't be in person right now. I did not take a single client in 2021. I leaned heavily into a network marketing business that I was working at the time, and I still love the company and I still rep for them, but I don't promote it. And I leaned heavily into that because I was like, I'm literally on my couch at home with twins. Like, what else can I do? And so, but I was still putting out content. I was still sharing. I like never stopped talking about it. So then 2022 rolls around, and one of the very first decisions I made was to invest in a coaching program where it was about time management. It was about prioritizing. It was about like trying to build a business while getting your life together on the back end. And that was like in January, February. And then those strategies helped me. And I ended up working with that coach the entire 2022 and migrating from going really hard in my network marketing business, also taking doula clients simultaneously. A lot of it was organic. I didn't even like market myself in that way. I was just putting out content.
And they were coming to you.
And they were coming to me. Yeah.
How you could help them.
And it wasn't like, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a flood of people, but it was enough. I mean, I think I did like 7 or 8 that year, which, you know, when it was not my intention. I was like, well, that was kind of a lot. And so it wasn't until actually the end of last year, the end of 22, that I was like, all right, I'm going all in. Like, I am going to be, 2023 is going to be full-time doula. I'm going to book out my calendar. Like, I love the other things I'm doing with my network marketing business and my other things, but I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And, so at the beginning of 2023, that was my decision. And I went all in. I was going to all the networking events. I was doing the booths at the mom and baby events. You know, I'm doing all of the things. And one of the clients that I had gotten a client in December of 2022 who was due in April. And she happened to have, what she does is she's also a business coach, and she helps women create what she calls their 6-figure offer. And their 6-figure, like, you know, how do you take the business model that you have now and actually make it into a business model that will be scalable and work for your life? And so her and I started chatting, and I was like, you know what? I need to go back to the beginning of when I started this thing, and I need to do prenatal coaching. Like, I keep saying I can't do this because it's going to mean I'm online all the time, or excuse me, I'm on call all the time. I need to do this a different way. And I guess I even forgot. I also picked I had a continuing education doula program in December through March that was the same focus. How do you be a doula while not being on call all the time? So I was leaning into this idea that I could do this work while also creating it in a way that worked for my lifestyle. And so at the beginning of 2023, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take on all these clients, but I'm also going to start building this in a way that allows me to not be on call all the time. So what other offerings do I need to do? How do I need to set this up? How do I need to gear this? And started putting all the bricks in place. And then when I found out I was pregnant this time, that was Memorial Day weekend. It was a total shock. And then to find out it was twins again, I was like, okay, well, this was going to be like a 6-month to a year transition from in-person to like completely online. And now I'm about to turn it into like, we're going balls to the wall. Like,
right.
This is going online like tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I stopped taking in-person clients, and I just put all of my focus into the prenatal coaching side of it. And that's where I'm at with it now. I'm sure I'll take in-person again in coming up, but I want it to be only the clients that I really, really want to take, not because I feel like I have to take them because financial, like we're still a business, still have to like make money. And so, yeah, it was like a weird, windy, a lot of resistance, a lot of reasons why I said I couldn't do it, but it just kept nagging at me. And, all the while I worked a part-time job at a chiropractic office. I was teaching yoga pre-2020. I still work catering events. Like I'm still doing all these like side gigs, side hustles, like while I'm building this business. But it never, the itch just never left. Like it was just like this little voice that was like, do it, do it, do it. Like you're supposed to do this. And so now I feel like I'm finally fully listening and embracing and like
just, your intensity, your enthusiasm, your fortitude, your resilience, going through a pandemic, having twins, thinking your business is going to be a certain way, getting all those setbacks, still then sharing from your couch. Like you are such a badass, my friend. Like it's just like you are rapidly prototyping like your future as you have kids. And I know people can go to your podcast and they can look at your resources to see more of your journey and how you've got to where you're at. But I'm just curious, you basically just gave me the evolution of your business over the last 3 years. And if I go on your website, you've got some services. Can you tell me about what's different about each one and how you're supporting that? And, what do you think the future is going to look like with that too?
Yeah. So right now I have two offerings. One is my like signature program, which is my other baby. Like, I don't even want to say the word sixth baby because I'm literally about to have 5 kids and it makes me kind of want to vomit. But it is my prenatal coaching program, and it is 12 full months of support to take moms through the entire pregnancy journey and continue to support them into postpartum, to have that continuity of care so that they can feel so informed, so supported, and truly like they are in the driver's seat of their birth. Like they are, I always say, I don't care what decisions you make as long as they feel like your decisions. I feel like so many moms get in that trap of, well, I'm doing it because that's what my doctor told me to do, or that's what my sister did, that's what my best friend did. And it's like, but what do you want? And they're spiraling on Google, they're spiraling on TikTok. They're just like, there's so much information coming at them. They don't know what resources are good or bad.
Are you trying to get them to key into their instinct?
1,000%.
As a mother?
Yeah. I mean, self-trust is step 3 of my framework. And so that intuition piece, I start all my clients with, how do you want to feel? And we go through this in-depth list of journaling prompts. We sit for 2 hours and we talk about it. And we're just like, this is the foundation, because we're not even going to talk about birth options until we know how you want to feel in your experience, because none of those options matter until we know how you want to feel, because then we can start to curate this experience via the options we're choosing, because we know how you want to feel. And also, when unexpected curveballs come up, as they do in birth, we can make the pivots we need in the moment, because we're always going back to, how do you want to feel? What is your gut telling you? Trusting that inner voice more than my goal is for my clients to trust themselves more than anybody else in that room, including their doctor. Like, you should trust yourself more than anyone else. And sometimes self-trust looks like, I'm going to put this in the hands of the person that has the education. Like, sometimes that is what self-trust looks like. But you still have to trust yourself in doing that, and not just do it because you think you're supposed to. Like, those are two very different things. And I also, one of the things that I teach my clients in this program is, everything is an option, and it is a hill I will die on. And I know a lot of people might have their versions of disagreeing with me of, well, my insurance won't let me go to that hospital. My doctor won't let me. I have this condition, so that's not an option for me. I have this ailment, that's not an option for me. And I'm like, what if you flip that on its head and came at it from the perspective of, I am choosing to birth at this hospital because my insurance is going to pay for it. And I would rather birth here and get that birth paid for than pay for a different birth out of pocket, because we're going to use that money for XYZ thing. And that's what our family needs to do right now. And I am actively choosing that. Like, what if that was your thought instead of, well, I have to go there because my insurance is what's paying for it? Or what if instead of, well, my doctor won't let me do that, or one good one is like, okay, my hospital won't let me have a water birth. It's against their protocol. Okay. So you're taking that power away from yourself. You're saying they won't let me. What if you flip that and said, I am choosing to give birth at this hospital and to give birth with this provider. I understand that it is their policy to not have a baby in the water, and I am actively choosing to get out of the tub because this is where I want to have my baby and this is who I want to support me in this birth. Versus, well, they just won't let me. And I know that there's nuances to this.
Sure.
But if we're able to do that, we remain in control. We remain in the driver's seat. And that is that self-trust piece. You can't do that if you don't trust yourself. And an analogy that I like to use is, it's not your fault that you don't trust your intuition in birth. It's not your fault because it's something that's new to you. It's not something our culture has ingrained in us to feel like we should trust ourselves in. We've been ingrained to trust somebody else, put our hands, our entire health, right, in the hands of other people. And the analogy that I like is you're walking alongside the pool and you have the skills to walk. You know how to walk. Your legs work. You trust that one foot in front of the other, there'll be solid ground underneath you, but you haven't learned how to swim yet. You've never learned how to swim. So you don't trust yourself to jump in the pool. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's valid. Of course you don't. You don't trust yourself to go into this birth and have that trust. You don't trust yourself to jump into the pool. But the only reason you don't trust yourself is because you just haven't learned the skills yet. Okay, so you hire a swim lessons coach, AKA me, y'all. You hire, you get swimming lessons and you now learn the skills. You now know how to hold your breath. You now know how to float. You now know how to navigate the water. So now you're not scared to jump in the pool because now you do know how to swim. And your provider, AKA the lifeguard, really should just be sitting there watching, making sure everything's okay. They're not in the pool with you, moving your arms for you, kicking your legs for you. But that is what happens in our current, system, the way it's set up. So that was a very long tangent for my service, but that's my signature offer. And one of the gaps that I noticed too was the clients I was having, my birth clients were like, we loved working with you. Everything was amazing, but we wish that there was more support postpartum. And that was just at the time not something that I dove a lot into.
Well, you were birth focused, right?
Yeah,
getting
the prenatal thing,
which we know is not the finish line when you have a kid. That's where it all begins, right?
Exactly. Birthday is one day, and then you got to be a parent for the rest of it. And so I really wanted to make this program 12 months long because I wanted to take people through at least if you hire me the second you pee on a stick, you're at least getting me 2 to 3 months into your postpartum, right? But if most people hire me around, they're probably ending their first trimester, starting their second, sometimes even they're late into their second trimester before they're really like, ooh, I need the support. So you're getting me for 6 to 9 months, right? Into your postpartum period. So when you have that transition back to work, when you have those doubts, when you have that postpartum rage against your husband because he's doing the dishes and being amazing, but you're pissed because he just gets to leave and go to work and live his life like normal and your body's a wreck and you're like, this rage is not why am I feeling this? But not
something Stephanie went through at all with me.
It's like, we think we're crazy for thinking these things, but to just have someone on the other end to validate it and be like, hey, that's totally normal. Let's feel it. Let's vent about it. Let's be in the thick of it for a second. And then let's find ways that we can move out of it. And to have that continuity of care too. So like, this is also the person that you've been with through your prenatal care. They know your story. They know the ins and outs. And now they're with you again postpartum. So that's my signature core offer, my program. And then I also have a mom membership. So this is just a very low ticket, come in, get community. Let's basically not stay stuck. Let's not, maybe you're a mompreneur that's navigating new mom life. Maybe you're, a stay-at-home mom who had to leave a career, but you're feeling like you're just not fully fulfilled. And so that offer is going to get some tweaking over the next few months, but that is a very low ticket, accessible way to get more high touch access to me outside the podcast, outside of Instagram, I have a private Facebook group, which of course you can come in and ask me any questions you want and I'll answer. And I'm always in my DMs on Instagram, but this is just like one next level up of like, we have weekly calls. We talk about topics. How big is your
community now? Would you estimate how many moms are part
Facebook
of it?
Community? So on Facebook, I mean, we're still like 150. And the mom membership, I literally just launched like a couple months ago. So it's still very, very small. It's me and one other mom at the moment.
Okay.
But I'm having many, many conversations with moms on the back end of, I think this would be a good fit for you. Like, so it's just kind of getting moms to the place of being able to prioritize themselves and sometimes feeling like, oh yeah, I can invest X amount of dollars a month to actually not stay stuck and not feel like crap and like that actually is worth it. But even talking with Stephanie, it's like that self-care piece. It's hard even with therapy, right? Like to invest in yourself, to be like, this money is worth taking out of the family pot to put into me and me alone, which obviously in turn has all of the ripple effects into how you can serve your family and your kids and how you can show up.
Absolutely.
But we have that guilt of, oh, I'll be fine. I don't really need it. I don't need the therapy. I don't need the community. I don't need the group. I don't need the,
We have a long way to go. When I say we, I mean like just generally we, maybe more so in America, just with this concept of like, investing in ourselves and what return on interest is. Like that ROI thing. I mean, you know this, like you're a coach, right? You have these conversations with people that are hesitant. Well, that's such and such a month. And let's like, what do I get? It's like, well, for a birth coach, like everything that I've been hearing you say is like, I'll bet your clients, they don't come out of the birth experience with level upon level of trauma that's going to show up in all kinds of different ways later on in their life. Their amount of regret because they're working and trusting themselves and you're setting the stage by that. They're not going to come out with as much regret and resentment and all these things that have these like serious side effects on our overall health, right? Let alone our mental health. But we have a long way to go with, spending money on things that matter, I think a lot of people will medicate during processes, right, that are tough mentally in life. And they find they're going to spend their money on other things, maybe.
Yeah.
But we all try to find a way to cope with the things we go through.
And with personal development of any kind, and, you could consider birth coaching a form of that, because I truly do think that it is the way you feel in your birth that then trickles into how you're able to parent, how you're able to show up. Like there will be less postpartum mood disorders if women feel seen, heard, validated, empowered, autonomous, like in their birth process. Like I truly, truly believe that. But a lot of times that ROI you don't see until it's like retrospective. Like
right.
And anybody that's not a business coach, if you're not helping people make money or save time, it's really hard to quantify or to make tangible an ROI. Like, how can I make tangible how different you're going to feel as a mom if you don't have trauma or if you're not, if you know how to advocate for yourself. And and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have trauma. It doesn't mean that you're not going to face something. I can't save everybody from birth. I can't save everyone from a provider doing something crappy. But what I can do is make you feel like you had the skills to know how to say something. You had the skills to pivot. You had the self-trust to be like, why are we doing that? Actually, I'm going to decline that. Actually, I'm going to fire you and go to a different doctor. Like, you felt in control of your choices. But it is hard. Like,
right.
That ROI doesn't look the same.
Right.
As like, you're going to make $10,000 in 6 months, So I find that is a challenge as a business owner who's
right.
not producing like such a quantifiable ROI for sure.
On that subject, I know you've got experience networking with other business owners. I mean, you mentioned you were part of a group and you found a coach that partnered with you for what, 9 months, 10 months, was it? You're paving your own way out there. Like, you're doing things other people aren't doing. Who do you network with in Kansas City or, even on a national level? Like, where's your iron sharpening iron effect coming from? Like, people that can help you understand, you're not crazy for thinking things from the business angle and like, trying to help others and be helped, I guess, in that sense with networking.
Well, I'm a podcast junkie. That's where I got my start in any kind of personal development. Actually, when I became pregnant, I was like Googling, how do I listen to a podcast? I need all this information. I don't even know how.
That's awesome.
And I was behind the times because I'm pretty sure podcasts were old news by 2017.
I think they kind of started around 2005 or 6. And yeah, they were on only one platform. This is so funny. I'm going to be Googling all this stuff when the interview is over.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to listen to one. But I dove down the rabbit hole. So my first mentors were people that I didn't know. I was listening to their audiobooks while at home with my kid and while I was cooking dinner. And I mean, literally to the point where like, if I'm in the shower, I'm listening to podcasts. If I'm driving, I'm listening to podcasts or an audiobook, like all the time. And like, instead of kids' songs in the background, my kid's probably like knows all of these like health and wellness and personal development.
My girls have had to listen to the same thing. Me and Steph, we do that. Yeah, they got to hear it.
It's hard to not. But then from there, I kind of found through social media, I found some groups here in Kansas City. I ended up joining a mastermind it was a very small little, like her first cohort, I think.
What is a mastermind? Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, it's just a group of, usually it's business owners, I guess I would say, that are all kind of at the same level in business that are coming together to kind of coach each other and also like receive but give. So like, here's my area of expertise. Here's something I'm good at, but then I'm going to ask you questions. So it's like,
sure.
And it's like a brainstorming session with people who are doing what you're doing. So when you can't, it's finding those people, like you said, that get it. Because people that aren't in it, people that aren't starting businesses, they're kind of like, you're nuts. Like, why aren't you just going and getting a job? Like, why are you doing this? And then Instagram, honestly, like I have made some really good connections joining there's some different Facebook groups. Sure. And through Instagram, I have found every single one of the mentors that I have paid money to, as well as the mentors that I have consumed their free content. And so I think when you show up authentically in the online space, like you're attracting those other people that are. And then when you make those genuine connections, like, yeah, there's weirdos out there too.
Sure.
But it's just, I mean, this coach that I worked with like all through 2022, I didn't meet her in person until the beginning of May of this year when she hosted a retreat, but I felt like I knew her. I mean, we were on Zoom calls, we were in Voxer chats, we were like, I felt like I knew her.
Right.
And then obviously like the networking group that I met Stephanie in, you know, there's some really great networking groups here in Kansas. The one we're a part of is Well Women KC, and it's for business owners and providers in like the more wellness holistic space in Kansas City. And there's a few different chapters, but a friend of mine is one of the co-founders of it. And I remember we were sitting, we had literally just done, like, I think we had just drank some wine, like back at my other friend's, her boutique. And it was the wine that I market in my network marketing business. So it's completely clean and like we felt good about it. But then we were like, oh, we took a yoga class and then we're like, let's go across the street to the Peanut. And we're literally sitting at the
in
Peanut.
Overland Park.
Yeah. Not eating healthy food at all. And we're just talking about health and we're talking about all this stuff. And this friend of mine was talking about this idea she had to do this networking group. And then she did it. And now it's like popping off in all these different areas of the country. And I just am so proud of her. I'm so glad she did it, because every single time I show up to that group, it's the women that get it. Because not only are they business owners, but they're also in the navigating healthcare stuff that's just weird right now. And maybe it always has been, but feels even weirder now.
There's more awareness now, I think.
Yeah. And when you're budding the system, when I'm saying things about maternal health that are not what powers that be want you to say, or not what the majority of people are doing or thinking or saying, like, I think it can be really scary. So then sometimes just being in those groups, finding those people that get it, makes the world of difference. And I found a couple other just random ones here in Kansas City, networking groups, that I find them through social media. And then I just say, all right, I'm going to show up at this thing. And
you made so many good points in what you were sharing just now. And I think, it's part of why KCBC can apply to people listening everywhere, because these groups that we have in this city, and I will say, like right now, actually, literally as of the recording of this, it is Global Entrepreneur Week, okay, which I guess is a global thing. But here in Kansas City, I think it's KC SourceLink, they posted all the classes. And Stephanie, she actually signed up for a couple, but I was so
I don't even know what this is. I feel like I need to know about it.
I will send you links, and since we talked about it here in the podcast, I'll drop it in the notes. But there's a lot of women that are doing classes, and it's like, I know I saw a couple that were like for mompreneurs, like, hey, you're a mom and you want to start your business, here's how, and there's classes. And I'm looking at the signups because you can see who signed up. Some of these classes have like 185 people on the list, and they're virtual. And I think a lot of them are running out at PlexPod in Westwood this week. And by the time this airs, it'll be over, but everybody can learn for next year. But the fact that there are groups now with social media, and just what you said about being authentic, and because you are doing that and you're being bold and going forward, you're finding your people in your tribe as well. Those people are finding you. And with the groups too, like I know what Stephanie loves about the group you guys are in. What's that group called again?
Well Women KC.
Well Women KC. So you have chiropractors, you have physicians, you have therapists of all types, speech therapists, physical therapists. And so you find people that are doing things in the space you're in. And so it's just, again, I feel personally holistic, approach to medicine and all that. I've found a lot of value in that in my own life too, in different ways. So we talked about networking. What do you do that no one else is doing right now? What makes you unique, and what's your competitive advantage, I guess, that you offer to moms?
Well, it's scary. It's scary to do something no one else is doing. But I mean, my offer in general, like me taking this extremely personal moment that most people only think about in like a, either I'm going to take an online course, like a birth class, like a birth course, or I'm going to have an in-person doula, and me saying, guess what? I'm going to do it a whole different way. And we're going to take all of the value of this in-person support and this back pocket, quick access, like expert, but also best friend, but also like validate and also like, and basically say, this is what I'm offering. And it's, I don't know anyone else that's doing it, which is really actually kind of scary because I'm like, am I insane? Is this a thing? But I think the way, and I'm not saying that no one else is doing this because I'm sure other people are, but just the way that I present and convey information to my clients is like this. I talk like a sailor. I don't think I dropped any F-bombs on this podcast. I tried not to.
It's okay.
But
that's what the explicit button's for. We got this.
I
That's
mean,
okay.
My mom membership is called Moms That Say F because I'm like, hey, you know you're part of this if this is what you do. But
right.
I'm just very, very real with my clients. I'm not going to sugarcoat. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm going to be honest with you, but not in a way that scares you. And I'm going to also come at it from this very empathetic, very compassionate, like, that sucks. Let's feel it, but let's not sit there. Or like this like semi-tough love, like, your doctor said that. You're telling me, like, your doctor said X, you're telling me you want Y. I'm going to tell you this is a red flag. This is not in alignment. And that might make you not like me. That might make you, have to make a hard decision. But instead of, being like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like, I'm going to tell you how it is. But also from this place of like, here's this hard truth. And also, I totally understand that it's hard and it's valid that it's hard. And now let's process the emotions that come with learning this hard truth. So I'm sure that there's other, prenatal doulas or prenatal coaches or professionals that are doing it in that way. But that's just something that, like, I'm going to say the stuff that maybe other people aren't willing to say, like everything is an option, because I truly believe that. Or I'm going to say something like, no, you actually can control your birth. Because I know a lot of people will say like, well, you can't control what happens. Why write a plan? Birth never go to plan. Let go of control. And though there is a time and a place for that narrative, most moms are not there yet. And so I'm willing to say the things that might piss people off.
You make a good point though about being part of the person's circle of trusted advisors, right? Like they're hiring you to be that trusted advisor. And, I know when Stephanie and we've gone through our pregnancy journeys, and obviously I'm her husband and I've had to watch a lot of these things happen and I have to figure out how to support. But, I think a lot of us lose sight that back in the day, it was people have been being born since the dawn of time, since the dawn of man, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't have a lot of this stuff. So you're getting down to what they want, trusting
Mm-hmm.
themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I
don't know if this is what you're getting at exactly, but
help me.
Birth is physiological, right? It's
Sure.
Yes, it's something that's been happening forever and ever and ever. And even just bringing birth into the hospital or medicalizing birth is new. If you look at the history of midwives and birth, we're talking like the witch hunts. Like these were the women, the midwives were the ones that were burned as witches. Like these
Really?
are the things that actually happened in our history, and it's why things are kind of the way they are now. you can start me on a tangent talking about like it really all comes down to money. Money, as most things do, but our healthcare system is a business and it's designed to make money. And that's really, really unfortunate. But I'm currently reading a book and she's talking about how we were taught how to birth in our current like day and age. And we don't need to be taught. Like, you don't need to be taught how to build your baby. Like, you're pregnant. You're not thinking, I'm going to build a leg today. I'm going to build some liver cells today. Like,
I'm going to kick the heart rate up a few BPMs.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't need to be taught that. But
Today the lungs will start forming.
It just happens, right? It just happens. And so birth can be the same way. Birth will just happen. There are women in comas that literally just have babies because their body is doing it. We don't need anything else. You don't need me. Like, you don't need a doula. You don't need anyone else outside yourself to birth your baby. You don't. But we also have the reality of this is the system in which we are in. This is we are living in common day and age where the fear is there. It's been instilled in you. It's been instilled in you through your mom and your grandma and the media and your best friend. And so you have to work through it. You have to work with what you've got. I always say, like, advocacy, teaching advocacy skills and teaching women how to advocate for themselves, because I don't want to advocate for you. I don't even want to empower you. I want to remind you that you can empower yourself. I want to teach you to advocate for yourself. But even all of that, none of that should be necessary. That is such a big piece of my job.
None of that should be necessary, like telling you that you have the power.
No, advocacy. Sorry.
Advocacy. So,
yeah,
no, go ahead.
like,
Go ahead. Yeah, clarify.
The fact that advocacy is such a big piece of my job, but yet birth shouldn't need an advocate.
I hear you. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yep.
And it is something that, like, we've been doing forever. And I talk a lot with my clients about the physiology of things and the hormones and how nature intended it. Now, does that mean that I'm not going to support a mom that wants to bring in medical intervention? Absolutely not. But as long as she knows what those things mean, as long as she is choosing them as her choices and not just like, oh, well, this is what everybody does here. I thought that's just what you do. No. We're not doing that. We're not doing it that way. And if you want to do it that way, don't hire me, please.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know. You didn't really ask questions. I didn't really answer a question, but like
This is a conversation.
It is this just like this balance between this is how it has been forever and should be, and this is how like nature intended it, but also this is the reality in which we live. This is our current circumstance. This is and really being able to meet women where they're at. And that's in motherhood too. You take something like breastfeeding, right? You've got people on one side that are going to say like breastfeeding is the only way, all of this. And then you've got people on the other side that are like, well, fed is best. And as long as your baby's fed, it's fine. I don't really agree with either. Her situation is her situation. Yes, ideally, maybe breastfeeding is the best thing in the world, but she has to go back to work at 6 weeks and make an income for her family because we live in an economy where 2 incomes are necessary, and otherwise they're literally not going to be able to pay their mortgage.
Right.
So maybe that's not an option for her in that, like, full capacity that nature was intended, So like we have to mesh these two worlds of and meeting people where they are and not shaming people for their decisions, but just being like, that works for you, this works for me, we can both be right.
Right.
Why can't we both just be right? Why do you have to be wrong in order for me to be right?
Absolutely.
And so I see that in birth a lot.
As a mother, you mentioned motherhood. You've got kids, you got your husband, you got your family dynamics. How do you balance, I guess, your business? And because I know you work from home a lot too, and I know from personal experience, it's the lines bleed and all that, but how you prioritize your business and your family and those sorts of aspects?
It's looked very different in different seasons. I feel like this year is the first year that I've actually gotten a handle of it, to be honest. And there are still days that I have those cries in the shower or like, I'm like, I just need to go lay in a dark room and cry for 20 minutes and then I'll be okay to like face the world again. But for me, and this is very personal to, I think, each individual situation, it's realized and admitted, that my business fulfills me and makes me a better mom. I think we can easily get trapped in the mom guilt. I think we can easily get trapped in, I mean, I'll say it now, and I've said it on my platform, is like, I envy to a point. I mean, I love who I am and I love, like, I've accepted it. But there have been times for sure where I envy the mom that enjoys being like a full-time stay-at-home mom and homeschooling her kids. Like, I wish that stuff fulfilled me, but it just doesn't. It just doesn't. Like, I love taking my kids to the trampoline park and like going and doing the fun things, but like sitting down and playing Play-Doh or doing a craft with my kids makes me want to die. Like, it's just not for me. And I have realized, because we've had seasons, whether it be financial or be just because the babies were younger, that type of thing, like where I've leaned into like, okay, I'm working more. And then I've leaned into more, okay, I'm at home more and we're not paying babysitters. And the seasons where we save the money on babysitters or nannies or daycare or whatever, and I don't get to work on my business, I die inside. Like, I just do. I'm not showing up as the best version of myself. I'm not showing up. They're getting the empty shell version of me because I'm not getting to do the thing that fulfills me. And my kids shouldn't have to fill every single bucket that I have. For some moms, their kids do fill those different buckets. For me, my kids are in one bucket and I want to fill that with them, but then my business is in another bucket and my kids will never fill it. Like, they just will never fill that bucket, and I can't expect them to. That's not fair to them. Like, to expect them to fill this void that is over here, that is something that's going to be filled by something totally different. So first it was like accepting that. And then for us, it has been in-home childcare. So we currently have a babysitter that comes to our house Monday mornings. She stays through my meetings, and I have Tuesdays are my day with the kids. Sometimes my mom helps me on Tuesdays. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, my sister-in-law comes over and watches the kids. My oldest is in school. I would love the opportunity to homeschool at some point or have some sort of alternative school situation. Right now is just not the season for that. And he loves it. He's thriving. So we're like, okay, he's in kindergarten. We're just going to go with it for this year.
Sure.
And allowing it to change. So knowing that, okay, in this upcoming season, I'm about to have twins again. What does this look like? I'm acknowledging my needs. I know I'm going to need more sleep, but I also know I am fulfilled by my business. And it's not about this like, oh, I have to hustle back. It's more like, no, I know that being in the monotonous newborn phase is going to kill my spirit. I need to find time to like, okay, when can my mom come over? When can somebody come over so that I can like go take 2 hours to write an email to my email list about it, about the topic that like fills my cup. Like, you know, even if that's about my kids, like,
right.
That's also part of why I think I've built a platform and a business around the life that I'm living. You know, I feel like most of us do that. We build businesses around where we have already been and seasons that we've been in because it's what we can speak to and it's what we're currently living. Like,
it makes so much sense to do that when you say it like that.
But
you make a lot of sense with how you approach this, everything. But
I don't also want to convey that It's easy. I mean, my husband and I, we bicker about the house tasks and figuring out like, I've been working all day too. Or, even last week, like right now, he's the breadwinner. My business is more sporadic. I get client, like some months are great and other months it's like, okay, I haven't gotten a client in a few months. Like this is crickets. That's kind of entrepreneurship, especially in the building phase. And my son was home from school or no, the babysitter called in sick. That's what it was. And it was just I'm the default. Like he has to go to work because he brings home the consistent paycheck. And I felt mad at him for not even asking me like, hey, what do you need today? And he's like, but Taylor, what would I have asked you? It's not like I can drop what I'm doing. Like I have to go to work today. Otherwise we lose the house. Like your paycheck, yeah, it helps with groceries and the kid, but like I pay the mortgage. Like I have to go to work. So it's like those things still come up. It's not rainbows and butterflies. It's not, oh, well, we've got this perfect little system and it works great all the time. Like that's not the case either. So I think you have to just be willing to, your reason also has to be strong enough.
Right.
Because we talk about, you've heard the phrase like choose your hard. And being a business owner is not the easy way to go. Like if I had a 9-to-5 and I just took my kids to daycare, like on paper, that would probably be a lot easier. When you think about like the stable paychecks and just the ease of your consistent schedule and things like that.
I believe it's a 90% failure rate. I actually was in a leadership summit the other day, and
entrepreneurship is?
Yeah. It's like 85 to 90% of entrepreneurs fail. And I think that the statistic is like in the first 3 years, and again, even that, it's like, what is failure? Yeah. And as an entrepreneur, have you defined what success looks like for your business and for your family and, all of that. So, great conversation today. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention before we sign off?
So, I mean, I feel like I could talk about birth and business and entrepreneurship for hours and hours and hours, but like, no, I think we covered a lot.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have to have a part 2 sometime. Really enjoyed having you here today, Taylor. Thanks for listening to KCBC. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, share, all of the things. Thank you guys so much.